All right, guys, welcome back to Wild Outdoor Living. So today we're doing the long-term review of the Bontrager Wavecel Blaze. So about a year ago, I brought you guys my first impressions review of this helmet. It was a brand new technology at the time, and it was pretty controversial as well. So I wanted to test it out and just see how the helmet did overall. Of course, when you're testing a helmet on your own body, you're not going to go ahead and try to do actual crash testing with it. So I was lucky enough to not get into any major crashes. I did have a couple of small impacts with this helmet, pretty minor things, but we'll talk about that as we get into the video. Today we're going to be talking about the good, the bad, and the price, because even in my last video, it was something that was kind of perplexing to me. So let's get on to the good. So with the good, of course, the Wavecel Blaze, pretty good looking helmet, I would say right off the bat. It's continued to look fairly well, no color degradation or anything like that. As it gets dirty, of course, you get some dark scuffs there. It looks like a hard-working helmet that's getting the job done. Just kind of gets a nice little patina on that orange. So good-looking helmet overall. Your main talking point is the Wavecel. So the Wavecel is this material in here, this plastic sort of wavy material, and it's meant to act kind of like a crumple zone in your car. And so it's meant to crumple and flex and then eventually glide along the inside of the helmet. And it's meant to do a similar thing to MIPS, but just takes it a step further with more impact protection. So this is a very highly touted material. It's also a very highly controversial material because the claims on it are pretty extreme. So my experience was, I didn't get any major crashes with it, but I did take a couple of tree impacts. You can see right here, I dented this shell just slightly. And it was kind of surprising when I'd knock my head on these trees. One, because the helmet sticks up a little bit higher than normal, so this happened a couple of extra times, I think, than it normally would have. But the big thing that was surprising about it was that the impact from the tree was much less than expected. But in general, I think if you do get in an accident where the Wavecel is going to come into play, I think it's going to protect you better than most helmets out there. The other good about this helmet is, of course, the flip block. This is a magnetic closure that I've never really had a problem with. So let's see if I can get it to do it here with one hand while filming. Yeah, see, so it's really easy to buckle and unbuckle this helmet. The straps are just really comfortable, and they have remained comfortable over the past year. I basically stuck to the main set of pads that come in the helmet, but there's another set of pads that will probably be reviewed separately with some silicone lining meant to reduce sweat dripping on your eyes and such. And I didn't really have an issue with that with the standard pads, so I left those in there. The boa dial has been really good. And the fit overall, the helmet is really comfortable, really feels like it kind of molds to your head a little bit. It doesn't work for everybody, but it worked really well for me. So let's get on to the bad. So the kind of the worst things about this helmet from my perspective is one, this is something you see right off the bat, is the coverage of this helmet is not as good as some other all-mountain helmets. So I would like to see more back of the head protection. I would like to see more temple protection, just side head protection in general. In terms of heat management, for me, I feel like this is a neutral point because the heat management I don't think is better than other helmets. I also don't think it's much worse than other helmets. So if you're comparing it to a very light, very airy helmet, it is going to vent worse than that. But compared to most standard all-mountain helmets, it vents about the same. I didn't notice a big difference in heat, but that's definitely debatable. The big thing I noticed with this helmet is the weight. So it is a little bit heavier than a Bontrager Rally MIPS or just another, or any other kind of cross-country helmet, or even the Bontrager Spectre, which is also a Wavecel helmet. This is one of their heaviest half-shell helmets ever, and it's probably one of the heaviest half-shell helmets on the market right now. And that's fine on a trail ride. So if you're in a fairly upright position, like on a mountain bike, it's not a big deal. 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, not anything to worry about. But I do know a lot of riders want to use a helmet with a visor of this style, you know, on their gravel rides. They just want to have one helmet, not have to worry about it. They're not worried about aerodynamics, and they just want to run the one helmet. So what I discovered is that if you are on a gravel bike, on a drop bar bike, maybe a little bit lower front end, not necessarily super low, but just kind of that neutral road bike style position, this causes me quite a bit of neck pain. And that can actually be a bit of a safety issue. So the longest ride I ever took this helmet on was actually the longest ride I ever went on, 154 miles, and half of it was gravel, half of it was pavement, lots of climbing. And even halfway through, 70 miles into it, I had a really hard time even turning my head to look, you know, as I rolled through the parking lot at one of our rest stops. And so that's definitely a problem. I do know a lot of people have put thousands of miles on these helmets and haven't had an issue. So it's gonna come down a little bit to personal preference, but I do feel like the weight is not really suitable for like long distance type cycling. If that's what you're into, I would recommend the Bontrager Spectre Wavecel, and it's quite a bit lighter, no visor, and is generally going to be better suited for gravel riding, gravel racing. Also a very, very safe helmet, arguably safer than the Blaze here. And that kind of leads me on to my next point in terms of safety. So the Blaze is one of the highest rated helmets on the Virginia Tech site, but it is ranked lower than the Rally MIPS, which is actually ranked #1 in their last round of testing. So the Rally MIPS from Bontrager, an older helmet, was ranked #1 on their last round of testing. It was ranked above any Wavecel helmet. And even in the first round of testing, when these first came out, the Blaze in particular was a little bit farther down the list than I would have liked to see. It was still a 5-star rated helmet, but it was several steps down from where the Spectre was at #1 and where the Ballista MIPS was, I think, at #2 or 3. So definitely something to keep in mind. It is a Wavecel helmet, but it does not test as well, at least from the testing that we have been able to get. It does not test as well as some of the other Wavecel and MIPS helmets from Bontrager. The good news is that Bontrager helmets seem to be some of the safest helmets in the world, whether you get a Wavecel or a MIPS. They're definitely working really hard on that. And so I actually had a friend who got a concussion in this helmet. And so he was out at the dirt jumps, went off a jump and kind of hit a rock funny and got turned real sideways, landed on the side of his face. And the big thing there is with the Wavecel just never was able to do its job because he landed on the side of his face and on the side of this piece right here. And as you can see, there's no Wavecel there at all, of course. So in that situation, you know, a full face may have been a good idea, and a helmet that just had a little bit more coverage in general probably could have helped out a little bit. Again, you know, these are foam helmets, whether you put Wavecel in them or not. If you have a big impact, it's going to be a big impact. It's just physics. So definitely something to keep in mind. There's not going to be protection in every part of this helmet, and the coverage is, I would say, subpar. So let's move on to the price, because that is the most perplexing thing to me about this helmet. This helmet is $300. This is the most expensive helmet I think I've ever owned. When you compare it to other high-end helmets, you know, it can make sense. There are definitely helmets in that price range. However, the Bontrager Wavecel Spectre, which I talked about earlier as being a better gravel helmet, it costs $150. It has full coverage Wavecel on it. It does not have the GoPro mount. It doesn't have a visor, but it has the flip block. It has the BOA. It has everything this helmet has, and it's $150. So where does the extra $150 come from? That, I think, is a really good question. It's also a really good question when the Bontrager Rally MIPS is $150 and ranks better than this helmet, at least in the Virginia Tech test. It's really hard to say. The other thing that makes that price perplexing is a helmet like this. So this is the Liat DBX 4.0. This is a full face, DH rated enduro helmet. Definitely light, on the light side. I think it weighs a little bit more than not much, but I feel. But I will say this, if the riding is pretty gnarly, I actually reach for this one a lot more often than I do this one. This one I keep to pretty gentle stuff. You know, if it's getting pretty hairy, I grab this one. And then if it's really hot or it's really not a kind of high risk day, I end up wearing an even lighter helmet than this one, which I ride for gravel races and things like that. So this helmet is kind of left in a weird spot. And this helmet costs $240. This one costs $300. This, I would argue, is a lot more helmet. So it's really a perplexing issue. Would I recommend the Bontrager Wavecel Blaze? I would if it fits you really well, because that's a really important factor. Not every helmet is going to fit everybody the same. And if this is a helmet that really fits you well and you're struggling to find something else that fits you in the same manner, I would definitely recommend going with this one. It does offer some great impact protection, really good comfort. It's a high quality build, but I would definitely try to get it on sale if possible. It's just, as much as I love Trek and Bontrager, it's really hard for me to kind of condone this price. So I think at $250 or even $200, this helmet makes a lot more sense. All right, so that's it for my long-term testing of the Bontrager Wavecel Blaze. I will keep using this over the next couple of years, but I am using it less and less. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. And as always, we'll catch you later.